Hey everyone, my name is Allie and welcome to my channel. And today I'm coming at you with my April wrap-up finally. I know it's been a while. This one's coming at you guys a little bit later than they usually come at you. And that is like totally my fault. I just have been in a huge reading slump, so it's kind of like put everything else in my life into a bit of a slump. And then B, I just have not really felt the inspiration or like the almost like the energy to like get everything situated in order for me to film, because unfortunately I don't just like turn on the camera and just start filming. I've just been dealing a lot with some bad executive function, and so it's been really hard for me to like get up, clean my room, put myself together, get the camera set up, all that kind of stuff. So not to make any like excuses, but just to kind of give you some explanations of like why it's been really hard for me to like upload on a regular basis. Also, I'm trying out a new hairstyle today. We did like the slick back pony into a braid with like a little bow in the back. I hope that it stays nice because, as you guys know, I do have bangs, so I'm a little nervous and scared about the bang situation, but we're trying it out. I think it looks really cute. I don't know if I love having it go into like the little braid ponytail thing, but this is what we're working with today. But I will say that I am really excited to talk about these books because April was an incredible reading month for me personally. I ended up reading, I think, about like 5 books in the month of April, which isn't anything like crazy. But I will say that the books that I did read were so good. Like I think that this is partially why I'm in a bit of a reading slump, is because the books that I read in April were just incredibly fantastic and amazing. So basically like every single book that I read this month was a 4 or a 5-star read, which was incredible. And I started off the month with The Keys to Kindness: How to Be Kinder to Yourself, Others, and the World by Claudia Hammond. And this was a really interesting read, and I did end up really liking it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And the reason I kind of picked this book up in the month of April is because in April specifically, especially towards the beginning of the month, I was feeling really kind of like dysregulated in a way, and I was noticing a pattern in myself that I was like reacting to things really harshly, and not just like normal everyday conversations or whatever, but like I was reacting to people being really shitty very strongly. You know what I mean? This is something that I have personally had to work on for a really long time in myself, is like, don't look at the comments on the videos that you're watching, and if you do look at them, don't try to start anything. Like, don't try to react or like give any sort of reaction to the trolls that are online, because it's just gonna like do nothing in the long run but make you feel like stressed out. Because yeah, it does feel nice in the moment to be like, say certain things to these horrible people, but I really want to practice in my real life and also online like a radical kindness, and just sort of like not give people the reactions that they're looking for, because that's ultimately what these people are doing, is that like they're very lonely, very disturbed, and very upset and angry people, and are very highly insecure. And what they want the most is attention. And by reacting to the outlandish, crazy, bigoted things that they're saying, you are giving them the attention that they're not getting in the real world. I was like, I need to train myself to see these sort of like attention-seeking behaviors and meet them with a radical sort of kindness. And that's why I ended up picking up this book. And I did find it to be really interesting and also really helpful. So highly recommend it. It's not like super specific to the internet or whatever, but it is kind of about like being mindful and being thoughtful and really thinking about your actions before you do them. And that's not to say that I think that like you should be kind to bigots or that you should be kind to people who are mean on the internet, because I 100% do not believe that. And I think that there's a really toxic culture on social media that is kind of like perpetuated by these social media apps that I've noticed. Like, bigots on these apps are not ever going to have like any sort of repercussion to their behavior, especially not from these apps themselves. So like, if you report people for being like fatphobic or racist or homophobic, transphobic, etc., like for some reason they don't go against the guidelines of these apps. But if you see somebody like that and you call them stupid, suddenly you've broken the rules. I don't understand it, I don't get it, but in order to like not stress myself out on the internet and also not get my accounts taken away, we have to start practicing a little bit of radical kindness and a little bit of like, I am going to leave this person alone and not give them any attention. So yeah, highly recommend this book. I thought it was really great. I listened to the audiobook and it was a super fast, quick read and I really enjoyed it. So highly recommend. The next book that I ended up reading, I actually am kind of like matching with it. Unfortunately, I do not have a copy of it because I cannot afford it at the moment. However, I did get an advanced listener's copy of Funny Story by Emily Henry. As you guys know, Emily Henry is one of my favorite authors. I absolutely love her. I think she is iconic and incredible, and all of her adult romances are like my all-time favorites. And I am a part of like the influencer program for Libro FM, which I highly recommend you checking out if you have a channel or talk about books on like Instagram, TikTok, whatever. Definitely check it out, see if you fit the guidelines and apply, because it's a great program. And even if you don't make bookish content anywhere and you just like to read books, I highly recommend Libro FM because they are a great resource for audiobooks. And you can have a monthly membership that gets you a credit every month, and it's like 15 bucks, and you will also be supporting some incredible local independent bookstores. So highly recommend it. I definitely want to do like a video talking about the different ways to get audiobooks, so if you're interested in that kind of video, definitely let me know. Anyway, they were offering Funny Story as one of the advanced listeners copies, and I was able to snag a copy for myself, and I just am so happy I did. Typically, I don't really like to listen to Emily Henry books as audiobooks for some reason. I just find that I get like a better experience when I read them physically, and I'm able to like curate a playlist for them. It just works better for me. I don't know, there's something about it. It was such a funny book. There were so many moments where I was listening to this book and just laughing out loud. It truly is, exactly as the title says, a funny story. There are definitely super emotional parts in it as well. However, I found that maybe it's just because I listened to it and I didn't read it physically, but I didn't cry quite as much as I expected to, and I didn't have as strong of an emotional reaction to it as I did with like Beach Read or Happy Place or even like Book Lovers. But for some reason, I like found that didn't really affect the way that I felt about this book. Like, yes, I might not have burst into tears while reading this book, but I had such a good time listening to it and being with these two characters whom I absolutely love, that it ended up not really mattering that I wasn't having this super strong emotional reaction to the plot line or like the things that these characters were experiencing. And it could just be because I've never gone through anything even similar to this, so there wasn't a lot for me to relate to. However, I did really like the two main characters. I loved the love interest. He was incredible, very much giving like Nick from New Girl energy, which I know a lot of people are talking about that, but he definitely reminded me of Nick so much. It is a really interesting and very unique premise. Like, I've never read anything like this, but it has those incredible Emily Henry characters, and like the dialogue is so incredible, and I loved the storyline. There really wasn't a lot about this book that I had fault with. Like, there were maybe like little tiny things here and there, but nothing to the point where I was like, oh, this is like fundamentally wrong with this book. I definitely want to pick up a physical copy and read it physically and like have a playlist with it, and maybe I will have a different emotional reaction. We'll see. But for now, really enjoyed it, gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I mean, it's just another incredible Emily Henry romance. The next book that I read was another one that I absolutely loved, and that was The Foxglove King by Hannah F. Whitten. And this is the first book, I believe, in a duology. I could be wrong, but it is an adult fantasy romance, which I absolutely loved. And this is one of those books that I read and felt like, okay, the fantasy genre, specifically the fantasy romance genre, is not dead. It's not going anywhere. And just because I've read a few dozen bad books in these genres doesn't mean that it's hopeless, which is great. I think that if we can get more books like this one into the fantasy/fantasy romance genre, that would be incredible. That'd be iconic. And this one is kind of like a harder one to explain, but basically it follows this young woman named Lore, and she has some magical powers, obviously, as this is a fantasy world, and she kind of has been an orphan for quite a while, and she ends up getting thrust into the court politics and religion and all this kind of stuff that is within this kingdom, and is kind of going into the palace undercover with one of the guards, and also starts to have some run-ins with the prince. And this does have sort of a love triangle aspect to it, but I think that it's done in a really interesting and refreshing way, so that's a lot of fun. And as you may know, I really enjoy a love triangle romance, so it definitely works for me personally. I know it's not going to work for everybody, but I do think that it's done in such an interesting way in this book that even if you don't love love triangles, you might end up really enjoying this one. So yeah, I highly recommend this book. I absolutely loved it, and I did talk about it in my fantasy book recommendations video that I did in the previous video, so I will link that down below if you want to hear more of my thoughts on this book. The second to last book that I read was a little adult romance. Actually, it's a sports romance, and it's First Base by Ali Wigand, and I ended up giving this book 4 to 5 stars. I absolutely loved it, and if you know anything about me, you know that I am a huge baseball fan. I love baseball. My team is the Los Angeles Angels. I have been a fan of that team for the past like 15 years, and I love it. I love baseball. I love going to, you know, the baseball stadium, watching a game. I don't really care who's playing. I love this sport so much. And reading this book, you could really tell that this author also loves baseball. And I think it's one of those sports that works so well for the romance genre, and I'm so shocked that there aren't that many baseball romances out there. Like, it's usually hockey, maybe sometimes football, but why not baseball? Baseball is literally described as like one of the most romantic sports. Like, how can you not be romantic about baseball? And one of my personal favorite rom-coms is literally a baseball romance. We're talking about Fever Pitch, obviously. Like, baseball just like feels like the perfect sport to do a romance for, or like to write about in a book. And it's so shocking that like there are not that many baseball romances. Anyway, I digress. This one was so good. It basically follows this young woman, and she works as one of the photographers for this Chicago baseball team, and she ends up kind of getting into this fake relationship with one of like the bad boys on the team, and he just got traded from the San Diego team all the way to Chicago. And so he's kind of new, you know, he's got a big reputation. And one night after I believe one of the practices, or was it one of the games, I don't remember, but one night they're kind of like out all together as a team and as like some of the employees, and they end up getting photographed together leaving this party or this club or whatever. And because they don't want to perpetuate his like bad boy image, they want to kind of clean him up a little bit, they decide to put these two together and have like this fake relationship for the press. And yeah, that's basically the entire plot. Like that's kind of what happens in the book, and I absolutely loved it. I thought it was so good and so much fun, very well written. I really loved the two main characters. I felt like they just popped right off the page, and like I said, I felt like this author really did know a lot about baseball, which was really refreshing. I really enjoyed it, and I thought it was so much fun. So highly recommend this one. And then the last book, which I realized I actually own a copy of, I am just too lazy to go and get it and find it because I actually don't really know where it's at, but I do have an ARC of it, and that is Evil Eye by Itaf Rum. And this book is written by a Palestinian author, and it basically follows the life, I believe that she's actually my age, so a young woman, a young Palestinian woman living in the US, and it kind of details a lot of her life and also a lot of her mother's life, and kind of like trying to reconcile her feelings about the way that her mother raised her and the environment that she was raised in. It talks a lot about Palestinian culture and also a lot of the struggles that Palestinians have faced from being colonized for the past like 70 plus years. So it was a super interesting look into this young woman's life. Like, she got married really young. She had her two beautiful children, whom I absolutely love in this book. I think they are so sweet and so cute and perfectly written children. Like, I am very critical of the way that children are written in adult literature. I can notice immediately when the author has no idea how to write the kids in their book. But this author does it beautifully. I thought that it was such an interesting look into this woman's life. It's really hard to explain because there's not really a plot, but so much happens, and you really get to look inside of her mind and into her experiences. It's a very character-driven book. So if you are like me and you're a character-driven reader and you love like a good literary fiction book, I highly recommend this one. Highly. It was incredible. One of my favorite books of the year so far. It's just so good. So good. And even though I myself am not Palestinian, I can definitely relate to a lot of the things that she was talking about in this book, and a lot of her feelings about like being born in the US and then like also having this identity that is very othered. I found her to be super relatable, and I also found her to be not quite like always likable, which I thought was really refreshing. She's a very complicated character, and she makes some bad decisions, isn't always doing like the right thing, but I feel like you really get to know her as a person and kind of understand why she does the things that she does. So yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was incredible. And if you pick up any of the books that I talk about in this video, make it Evil Eye. It is so good. So yeah, those are all the books that I read in the month of April. I know it wasn't like a super long video, but I did absolutely love like every single book I read in April. I don't know how it happened. I doubt that it will ever happen again this year, at least. I am very concerned that I won't read another book that I love in a very long time. So yeah, that's something I'm worried about. But I hope you guys enjoyed me talking about these books. I had a really fun time doing it. And please let me know if you've read any incredible books in April or even in this first week of May. Please let me know. I need some recommendations. So yeah, definitely recommend some books to me in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Also go ahead and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Goodreads, Storygraph, TikTok. All the links will be down below, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!